Huberman's enlightening video delves into the fascinating realm of science of attractiveness. I know, there is such a thing. Imparting our knowledge on how to enhance our personal appeal.
They definitely work. They change your facial structure. They dilate the nasal passages.
This isn't about affecting shallow, superficial changes, but tapping into our latent potential to project our most attractive selves.
So our experience of the world, all humans' experience of the world, is kind of tunneled by these, what we can see and what we can't see. There's a lot happening that we can't see.
This initial understanding serves as an inspiring gateway, opening doors to more profound insights and intriguing discoveries.
The more that I can anticipate events at a distance, the more that I can coordinate with my environment, like daytime and nighttime, but also when objects are coming at me, or things I want to chase and kill, or you think about mating behavior and hunter-gatherer behavior, all of that, evaluating faces and facial expressions without actually having to come into contact with people, afford a huge evolutionary advantage.
Applying these newfound methods can drastically transform our self-perceptions and influence how others perceive us. The crux of Huberman's insight video emphasizes the crucial role that authenticity and confidence play in augmenting one's allure.
And people ask me this kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? How do I sleep better? How do I stop stressing? And usually I find that people are not serious, meaning they want an answer, but they don't want to do the work.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I was like, look, it's really simple. Can you not eat until 2 p.m.? I was like, yeah, I'm not hungry in the morning. I'm like, great, drink coffee, drink water.
Through his explorations, we kind of come to realize that attractiveness is not solely confined to physical appearances. Instead, it's a complex amalgamation of our personality traits, our positivity, our self-esteem levels. This revelation forms a mere fraction of the profound knowledge that awaits us. Beyond this lies a universe of enlightenment that promises to forever change our understanding of attractiveness.
The key to this is, if we want to be very concrete, we should probably focus on actions. And I'll use fitness as an example because it translates to everybody, whereas people's circumstance is different. Let's say somebody really wants to take on a fitness routine. They hate running, or they want to lose weight in a healthy way.
Huberman's video serves as an inspiring testament to the transformative power of self-improvement. He cogently presents the argument that enhancing our attractiveness is not just about conforming to societal norms and expectations. Rather, it's more about nurturing our unique qualities and allowing them to shine forth.
And so there's a pretty straightforward formula where when you've been asleep all night, your fuel reserves, like you've got fuel in your fat, you guys don't have any of that, but you got fuel in your fat, you've got fuel in your muscles that can be burned, and you've got fuel in your liver, it's called glycogen. And when you wake up early, all of that is as low as it's going to be because you haven't been eating anything.
Got you.
And so if you exercise then, your body starts dropping into your body fat stores quicker.
This initiation into the intricate realm of personal development is filled with endless possibilities and opportunities. Every single step taken forward in this direction is a stride towards greater self-discovery and personal growth. Through his insightful observations, Huberman lays bare the often overlooked importance of empathy, kindness, and emotional intelligence in bolstering one's attractiveness.
A lot of people who are really overweight or even mildly overweight who have sleep apnea have more anxiety because they're not getting rid of CO2.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they're literally suffocating in sleep, and you'll see these people, they're mouth breathers. Not even necessarily just people who are overweight. So it's not good to be a mouth breather. You don't blow off enough CO2, anxiety goes up.
You should sleep with like athletic tape on your mouth so you train yourself to breathe through your nose, because apparently it's way better for you.
Yeah, I'll do cardio. I do a long run once a week or some long cardio. I do it. I try and not mouth breathe the whole time.
Can it also change face shape?
Yeah, so there's a wild book called Jaws, A Hidden Epidemic by colleagues of mine at Stanford, and they have these twin studies. One kid grows up in a culture where they eat a lot of soft food, drinking Capri Sun, eating applesauce, baby food. The other one is, got stuck in the jungle or wherever it is, and they're chewing on bones and chewing their food. And one kid, these are identical twins, has beautiful jaw structure and high cheekbones, and the eyes look nice and clear. The other kid is like droopy, the teeth are there in their mouth breathing. They show this, there's one case of this young girl who she got a pet hamster, I think it was, got a allergy to the hamster, and literally took this beautiful young girl, and her face just starts aging at a rapid rate. They get rid of the hamster. She goes back to nasal breathing. They do a little encouragement of nasal breathing using the mouth closure thing at night, do a little bit of medical tape. And like these beautiful, almost like model-esque features come back in this girl. Jaw shape and the clear to the nasal passages. Really there's no reason why any of us should ever I had braces, but all your teeth should fit in your mouth, right? And you should be able to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth with your mouth closed. I can't quite do it. Your palate should be somewhat wide.
His teachings show us that the secret to being more attractive lies in our ability to resonate with others on an emotional level. This introduction to the world of human connection is just the beginning. It opens up a vast expanse of fascinating explorations into the depth of human relationships and emotional bonds. Huberman's video presentation dives deeply into an often overlooked aspect of attractiveness.
I look at the plastic surgery thing now, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, maybe this just reflects my age and my generation, but I see some people with wearing so much dark eye makeup, plus they're getting the cheekbone inserts. They look like skeletons. Now, that's not, listen, everyone's got their taste, especially if they're really lean, but facial structure is something that can be modified. And so chewing hard foods is something we used to do a lot more. All this slurping down of food and calories we know isn't good from the obesity side, but it's also not good from the jaw structure, teeth structure, face structure. And it's all related, So that book Jaws is amazing. People can just look it up online if they want to buy the book. Just do, Jaws, mouth structure, face structure, and then just go images, and you'll see these pictures. And this was known in the 1800s. There was a book called Shut Your Mouth by a British doctor who talked about the fact that people who snore, sleep like this, and then during the daytime they become mouth breathers. He said they become less attractive than the people who are nose breathers. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and this is like a zero cost thing, but it's not emphasized enough.
At all.
Yeah.
It's not solely about physical appearance, but rather about the strength of character, the mental fortitude, the ability to maintain a positive mindset, and just having the audacity to be yourself unabashedly. These enlightening teachings serve as a reminder that our individuality is something that should be celebrated, that our genuine selves are inherently attractive.
Senses are these cells within our body, our eye, our skin, our nose, our mouth, that are taking physical entities in the universe. They're like wavelengths of light, physical touch, and translating that into nerve signals, into electrical signals in the body. That's how the nervous
senses
system.
meaning taste, feel, sight, hearing, the five senses. Gotcha.
The five senses. And people always say, well, what about intuition? That's different. That's not a sense. That's actually a sense of your internal world. It's called interoception as opposed to exteroception, sense of the outside world. So the five senses, and we are whether or not people like it or not, we are heavily constrained by those senses. For instance, a mantis shrimp, of all things, can see like 64 different shades of color that we can only see one shade of, for instance, because they have receptors that can pick out those things. Some animals can see ultraviolet emissions, others can see infrared. A pit viper can see your heat emissions. Humans sometimes think they can see heat emissions, but they can't see heat emissions unless they put infrared goggles on. Then they can. So the senses constrain our experience of the world. And I don't doubt that there are some people that have a little 0.25% more UV detection, or there's even some evidence for weak magnetoreception in humans from good labs. A little bit of, and turtles have very strong magnetoreception.
What does that mean, magnetoreception?
They can sense magnetic fields. So they sense them as, like that's magnetically. Humans have, there's some evidence written up in Science magazine if people want to look it up, which is quality journal, for weak magnetic sensing in humans. Some humans,
not strong,
but it's not strong, okay? And it's not strong in most people by any stretch.
I know it's a weird hippie thing to say, but hey, it's true. By emphasizing these characteristics, the video encourages us to recognize, to embrace and love our unique identities. It suggests that enhancing our appeal is not just about conforming to societal norms or standards of beauty, but about staying true to who we are and letting our authenticity shine.
And we know that you can't hold too many thoughts in mind at once. So what I will say is that it's hard to suppress thoughts, but it's actually quite easy to introduce thoughts. And it sounds to me like this law is basically a process of introducing thoughts. And when you start introducing thoughts and you start thinking of thoughts as a form of perception,
the way you view the world,
they're going to shape the way they're going to shape what you see.
Wow.
They're very going to heavily constrain what you see. Now, this has a dark side and a light side. And
Tell me.
The dark side is that beliefs are essentially thoughts that are recurring thoughts, or things that are kind of like books on a shelf that you can reach to anytime. If I say, hey, what about that book out there, Jay Shetty's book, you can go grab it because it's on the shelf right there. You can show it to me, right? It's there all the time. You know where it is, and it's very accessible. And they're very realistic, right? Yeah. I mean, as Carol will say, and other people have said in the psychology field, positive self-talk, oftentimes, unless you do it correctly, you're badly wrong. Lying to yourself won't work. Saying I'm a winner when you haven't lost or you haven't won yet is great, but that's not the most effective use of these systems.
Well, you're also being out of integrity with yourself. You're telling yourself a lie.
Right.
You're like, and then you're losing your ability to have confidence because you're just lying to yourself.
Right. And if it's really extreme, there's a name for it. It's called delusional, right? Right. And people will start to point that out, and then it becomes harder to recruit people into your goals. So I think the key thing is to attach that sense of reward to the effort process. It's saying, look, I am oriented in the right direction and rewarding the things you're not doing. So we've all heard the example, well, you put your shoes by the door on day 1. Day 2, you put them on. Day 3, you go out the door. Day 4, you walk around the block, and then, and then eventually they're running marathons. Okay, great. But to sustain that behavior, or even to make the behavior pleasurable and to give you energy, the key is to subjectively reward those steps. So it's not going to be, let's say I go out and I run a mile, and my goal is to run 10 miles in a few weeks. The key is, as you're in the strain of that mile, the hard part, you want to tell yourself, this is the good part. This is the part that gives me energy. And I'll be very surprised if people don't actually feel like they could continue further. So it's a journey of 1,000 miles starts with is made up of, single steps. But the key is to reward the harder steps, not the easier ones, and not the ones where you get the thing that you want.
Don't reward yourself for putting your shoes on and taking a step outside.
You could if that was a huge barrier for you.
If it was very hard.
If it was very hard for you.
But running the 10 miles is hard.
Right. Find the wall and push a little bit further through that wall and reward that process. So this is why I think reps in the gym, the final reps, like reps to failure, are usually not the best example. First of all, most people aren't doing reps to failure, and it doesn't translate to young kids and stuff where they probably shouldn't be doing heavy reps to failure, this kind of thing. What you want, however, is if you're going to go there, to think about this is the hard part, because that's when adrenaline, norepinephrine are getting maxed out, and that's when you have an opportunity to bring dopamine in and teach those neural pathways to slam that back down.
For the anxiety and stress management, I'll give you some breathing, some respiration tools that work really well that are not, woo mysticism. It's not, I'm not going to tell you to meditate 30 minutes a day, although that's a cool practice too. I'm going to give you some tools you can use in real time as you're working hard and dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with in life. Okay. So that ends, the conversation ends, and Greg Hunt was there too. I knew from growing up.
Yeah.
Talked to Greg a little bit. And then a year later, Mike reaches out and says, hey man, thanks for all that stuff you gave me. I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, I lost 60 pounds and I haven't had a sip of alcohol since we talked last and feeling pretty good.
Damn.
And I was like, so how did you do it? He's like, well, I get on the bike and I pedal as hard as I can, and like someone chasing me with a syringe full of poison. Sure. And, I was like, he remembered. And I was so impressed. Like, very few people can just take the menu and just do it. Look, I always say the beauty of being young is that neuroplasticity, your nervous system's ability to change in response to experience, to learn things, is at its absolute peak. However, you don't have that much control over your life when you're young, right? Especially when you're really young. As you get older, it gets harder to change your nervous system, but you can do it. But the advantage you have is that you can direct exactly what changes you want to happen. And so there are two different ways to change your nervous system depending on whether or not you're younger or you're older. And it's not like the gate drops right at 25. It just tapers off. But Mike made the decision, and I always say
if somebody is an adult, you can't change their mind.
Right.
You literally can't. They have to make the decision to do that. And he flipped the switch.
He flipped it.
He flipped it, and he's still there. And I think he feels much better physically. And then, and I feel guilty for this, but then I started getting him really hyped about all this stuff. I was like, I started sending him athletic greens. I was like, drink athletic greens and check this out. You know, you can, I have one of those barrel saunas. Yeah. So I was like, I like just like sweating all that out. Mm-hmm. And when you sit in the sauna, your heart beats and your vessels dilate. So it's a little bit like exercise, which most skateboarders don't need because they're really active.
Got you.
But as you get older, you want to keep all the plumbing working really well. There are also issues of sort of body type preference and safety. And by safety, I mean two different things, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
safety for the woman.
And listen, and for the man. Listen, there's a really interesting literature about this. If you look at sort of who people select to have sex with versus who people select to try and form long-term relationships with them, I mean, there are many men who would not choose to be with the woman that is most attractive to everybody because they don't have the confidence they could keep her.
That's
right?
a good point.
Even if she's not a flirt and wouldn't be looking, right? Even if she didn't have a wandering eye. Some men deliberately wouldn't want to be with the most beautiful. People tend to match up pretty closely in terms of attractiveness. Pretty closely. Not always. Yes, it's true that resource potential is an important variable because people have to think about safety and childcare and a number of things.
But of course,
women work too, right? Women can work too, right? They can opt to work and make money. But more important than any other feature across all cultures is that the woman reports that she sought someone who is kind to them. Not necessarily kind to everybody, but kind to them, right? Kind to them. Okay, so even if you think of like extreme money, right? Extreme money, or you think of extreme bodies or extreme resources, right? That somebody has. Women, in terms of who they tend to pair up with long-term, assuming heterosexual, right? They're heterosexual, because here we're making a bunch of assumptions. But in that mold, what is shown up over and over again in the data is that their top priority is that someone be kind to them. In other words, they're not interested in being with someone who's really wealthy who treats them like garbage.
Is that
and
also...
I think this gets lost because people think, it's all about money. It's not all about money. It's about safety and kindness, because you're talking about a long-term bond.
Right.
Now, then people say, well, what about this notion of gold diggers? And by the way, there are male and female gold diggers. I had friends in college who would say things like they wanted to marry a really wealthy woman. I was like, really? I just heard this from a few people. I was like, wow, you're thinking about that as your primary concern? They're like, no, but it would be great. I would hear people say that.